Hello, third grade, and welcome to lesson 9-5. In this lesson, we're going to focus on using regrouping to subtract instead of to add. So let's go ahead and watch our short lesson video. Now, regrouping works the same way here as it did in addition, where you're changing out certain groups for other groups. So you're changing out ones for tens, you're changing out tens for hundreds, and so on.
How can you use regrouping to solve subtraction problems? Mike and Linda play a game. Linda has 528 points. Mike has 349 points. How many more points does Linda have than Mike? Find 528 minus 349. 528 minus 349 is about 530 minus 350 equals 180. Draw place value blocks to show 528. Subtract 9 ones. First, subtract 8 ones. Regroup 110 as 10 ones. Then subtract 1 1. Do you need to regroup to subtract the tens?
Select your answer.
Subtract 4 tens. First, subtract 1 10. Regroup 100 as 10 tens. Then, subtract 3 tens. Subtract 3 hundreds. Linda has 179 more points. 179 is close to the estimate of 180, so the answer is reasonable.
All right, so you can see here how they were regrouping as they were going. So they were switching out hundreds for tens, they were switching out tens for ones whenever they needed it. So that way they were able to have enough pieces to take away. So if you don't have enough tens, you need to borrow one of the hundreds and break it apart into 10 tens. If you don't have enough ones, you need to borrow a 10 and break it apart into 10 ones. And that's how regrouping works with subtraction. So instead of making groups of 10 and carrying them over into bigger place values, you're pulling from the bigger place values and you're regrouping them into those small pieces so that you're able to use them to subtract. So here we can use our base 10 blocks and we can regroup or switch groups and place values, tens for ones, hundreds for tens, and so on. So my example here says find difference of 326 minus 143. So here I drew out my 300, 20, and 6. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract my ones. So I subtracted 3 ones. So now I have 3 ones left over. Then I had 2 tens, but I needed to subtract 4 tens. So in order to subtract 4 tens, I needed to regroup one of the hundreds. I needed to take one of the hundreds and break it apart into 10 tens. That way, now I could subtract 4 tens. So that left me with 8 tens left over. Then I needed to subtract my hundreds. So I needed to take away one group of 100. So this one I switched out for 10 tens. So now I only have, after taking away that 100, I have 100 left over, plus 8 tens, plus 3 ones, which leaves me with 183. Now, I needed to regroup in order to do this. So for 326 minus 143, I could take away the ones with no problem. But when I only had 2 tens and I needed to take away 4 tens, I couldn't do that. So I had to borrow 10 tens from the hundreds and add it to the 2 tens that I already had. So 10 plus 2 is 12. Now I could do 12 tens, take away 4 tens, gave me 8 tens. So now I only had 2 hundreds left over because I broke one of them apart. So 2 minus 1 gave me 1, and that's how I got to 183. So if you understand how to do this, all this is showing it to you in a different way. Let's take a look at our next example. So let's find 629 minus 453. So I drew my 600 and my 20 and my 9, and I needed to take away 453. So I started with my ones. I needed to take away 3 first. So I took away 3. So then I had, out of my 9 ones, now I only have 6 ones left over. Now I had 2 10s over here from the 629, but I needed to take away 5 10s. Now I didn't have 5 10s. So I had to take one of these hundreds and regroup it, break it apart into 10 10s. So now this one doesn't count as 100 anymore. I have it as 10 10s. So now I had over here 12 10s. If I have 12 10s, I can definitely take away 5 10s. So I took away 5 10s and it left me with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 10s left over. Now I needed to take away my hundreds. So I needed to take away 4 hundreds from these ones that I had left. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This one we had already switched out. So I was left with one of my hundreds. So 100 and 7 10s and 6 ones gave me 176. Now, if I'm stacking and subtracting, here you can see 9 minus 3. I can do that. 9 minus 3 is 6. I couldn't do 2 minus 5, so I borrowed a group of 10 from there, and this 2 became 12. 12 minus 5 I can do. 12 minus 5 was 7. And then since this became a 5, 5 minus 4 gave me 1, and that's how I got to my 176. So all this is showing you this in a different way. All right, let's take a look at our guided practice together. Our first question says, how do you decide if regrouping is needed? Well, that's pretty easy. If the number that we need to subtract is more than the amount that we have, then we need to regroup. We need to borrow from our neighbor. For number 2, what strategies could you use to find 507 minus 348? So I could use a lot of different strategies. I could use my regrouping using my base 10 block. So I drew my 507. Those were in purple. And I needed to subtract 348. So I didn't have enough ones to subtract. So I needed to switch out a group of 10 for ones, but I didn't have a group of 10. So I needed to go even farther and grab one of the hundreds, break the 100 into 10 10s, and then take one of those 10s and break it into ones. So here, then that became, I was able to regroup one of the hundreds into 10 10s, and I took one of those 10s and broke it into ones. So now I had not just 7 ones, I had 17 ones because I took a group of 10 and broke it. So 10 ones plus the 7 ones that I started with. So 17 ones minus 8 left me with 9 ones. Now I had 9 10s over here, and I could take away 4 10s. So my 9 10s take away 4 10s will leave me with 5 10s. So this, since we actually borrowed one of these, this became a 9. And this was not a 6 anymore because 10 became 9 because we broke apart one of them and added it over here. So 9 minus 4 gave me 5. And then 4 minus 3 gave me 1. So I also showed that on a number line. So I started with my 507. I took away my 300, that got me to 207. I took away 40, that got me to 167. And then I took away a group of 8, and that got me to 159. Now for numbers 3 and 4, we were asked to subtract and give an estimate. So for this one, for number 3, I used compatible numbers. 374, I made it 375. 176, I made that 175. So 375 minus 175 left me with 200. Now, when I went to do my actual subtraction, I couldn't do 4 take away 6, so I had to borrow. So that 6 became a 16 because I borrowed a group of 10. 16 minus 9 gave me 7. Now that I had borrowed 1, this became a 4. So 4 10s minus 1 10 gave me 3 10s. And then 8 take away 2 gave me 6. So 637 was very close to 640 for this one. For this one, 374 minus 176 14 take away 6, I could do that now because, and that left me with 8 because I borrowed a group of 10. This became a 6. I couldn't do 6 take away 7, so I had to borrow another group from over here. And this became 16 instead of just being 6. So over here, this was a 6. Then I had to borrow, so it became 16. 16 take away 7 gave me 9. And then 2 take away 1 gave me 1. So 198 over here was very close to my estimate of 200. And down here, 856, I rounded to the nearest 10, that got to 860. 219, I rounded up to 220. So my estimate was 640. When I did my subtraction, I came up with 637 as my actual answer. Again, these two are very close to each other. So that tells me that my answer there is correct. All right, so that's it for this lesson. If you guys have any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.